Unlike the escape from Alcatraz, more than 90% of all prison breaks occur while convicts are actually outside the walls, being transported to and from court or out on work furlough. Our next story is about two convicted bank robbers who pulled off one of the most remarkable escapes in history. It all took place in 1985 during a traffic jam in Hartford, Connecticut. On June the 10th, 1977, robbers wearing ski masks and carrying handguns made off with $140,000 from the Shawmut National Bank in Springfield, Massachusetts. During their getaway, a gun battle erupted and a Springfield police officer was shot and wounded. An alert witness wrote down the license plate number of one of the getaway cars. It was traced to Louis Bourgeois of Quebec. The bank's surveillance footage, taken days before the robbery, showed a man who appeared to be casing the bank. He was identified as Jean-Marie Gagnon, also of Quebec. These two longtime partners in crime were apprehended by Canadian police in February of 1978 and were extradited to the United States where they were convicted of armed robbery and attempted murder. Gagnon and Bourgeois were incarcerated at Walpole State Prison, just outside Boston. Each one was sentenced to spend between 39 and 54 years behind bars.
As soon as they came to the institution, they were classified immediately as extremely high escape risks. There was no concrete information that they were going to do something, but it was just a sense that we had. Gagnon and Bourgeois were good inmates. They knew how to play the system. For the most part, they adhered to the rules and regulations of the institution. They were respectful towards staff, and they did relatively good time. But we believe they were involved in drug activity, gambling activities in the institution. So on the surface, they were very nice, but on the underneath part, they were very dangerous people. You want to come out and talk to me now?
No, I speak with Louis first.
You sure? As a pair of inmates, they were more dangerous than any one inmate because they were for each other. You knew just from speaking to them or getting to know them that you could never, ever trust them. They were too dangerous to trust.
In 1985, Gagnon and Bourgeois were called as witnesses in a civil suit in Illinois, and in July they were turned over to the United States Marshals for the first leg of their journey. The Marshals bound Gagnon and Bourgeois not only with handcuffs, but with ankle chains as well. The ankle chains and the handcuffs were attached to a belly chain, and the two criminals were then chained to one another.
Stand right there. I want to get a goodbye picture.
As an additional precaution, Sergeant Robert McGinnis took pictures of Gagnon and Bourgeois so there would be up-to-date photographs in case of an escape.
Got you guys ready for you. Keep an eye on them if bad escape risk.
All right, thanks, Squad.
We were very apprehensive about them leaving because it was an opportunity for them to be outside the wall. And God only knew what they were going to do when they were outside the wall. Gagnon and Bourgeois, if they had to, I think would have killed the Marshals, absolutely. To get away, I think they would have done anything, which would have included killing the Marshals.
Hartford, Connecticut. 1 month later, on August the 13th, 1985, Gagnon and Bourgeois, escorted by different marshals, were on the last leg of their journey back from Illinois to Walpole State Prison when they got stuck in a traffic jam. Apparently, these marshals were not aware that Gagnon and Bourgeois were considered unusually dangerous.
The vehicles the Marshal Service used were not only used for transporting prisoners, but we also did what we call warrant work, investigative work out of those same vehicles. And at that time, a lot of them didn't have cages. This was a unique car where it did have a cage, but the door handles were still on the back. The only reason why those two deputies are still alive today is because of the cage that was in the vehicle. Now, what we figure occurred is that one of them, either Louis Bourgeois or Jean-Marie Gagnon, had a handcuff key secreted maybe up in their denture plate. And that's the only place we can figure since they were gone over so well at the jail. The handcuffs that were used on those individuals are the standard handcuffs. And those keys, there must be 1 million of them out there. They're just standard police handcuffs. For them to get that type of key would be fairly easy. I mean, anybody can get that type of key. Here they had a vehicle that was unique because the door handles were still on the back. They had the cuff key that worked both sets of restraints, and they had money on them. They had cash on them. And they were just looking for the right opportunity to get out of the back of the car, and it just happened to present itself when they hit the traffic in downtown Hartford.
Both men were in excellent physical shape, and still bound in waist chains, they were able to outdistance the pursuing marshals.
I wasn't surprised at all when we got the phone call that they had escaped. Not surprised in the least. As a matter of fact, it was like, you know, I'm surprised it took them so long.
Within minutes of making their break, the two men had disappeared into downtown Hartford. The Hartford police immediately began a sweep of the area.
Bourgeois' capture was just a simple case of panic on his part. He got away cleanly, went to the bus station, purchased a bus ticket on the next bus leaving, which happened to be just taken off within minutes, and got on the bus. He then saw a Hartford police cruiser come by, got off the bus, and started running behind the bus station. If Bourgeois had kept his head and hadn't panicked when he saw the Hartford police cruiser drive by, there's a very good chance he would have made it to New York City and made good his escape.
Get down on your knees. Put your hands over your head. Don't jog. Drop straight face down on the ground. Spread eagle on the ground.
Bourgeois was taken into custody and returned to Walpole State Prison. His sentence increased by a year and a day. Jean-Marie Gagnon was still on the loose.
Let me take you over here and show you where they found the chain in the stairwell.
Over the next few days, Marshal Roderick was able to piece together Gagnon's movements during the 4 hours following his escape from the car.
Suspicious person he saw in here yesterday goes right along with what Gagnon was wearing. A parking lot attendant had reported finding one of our belly chains in the landing of a parking garage. When we got out there, we identified the chain as being U.S. Marshal service chain, and based upon that, we knew that Gagnon had been in that parking garage.
Roderick believed that Gagnon had hidden in the parking lot stairwell while he freed himself of the chains. Police bloodhounds tracked Gagnon to the Connecticut River, but they lost his trail. Three hours after Gagnon escaped, he was seen on the other side of the Connecticut River, dripping wet. A woman stopped in traffic said he tried to force his way into her car.
The woman didn't know who this guy was until she saw one of the TV broadcasts. She called us 2 or 3 days later and said that man had tried to enter her car, but the car door was locked, and traffic moved along at that time, and she was able to get away from him. Now, she said the individual was soaking wet, head to foot. His clothes were all wet, and he was dressed in khakis. She just thought it might have been some type of transient individual who was sleeping out in the woods there trying to get in the car. She had no idea at all that it was Jean-Marie Gagnon. That's the unique thing about this case. It's 3 years old, over 3 years old, and we have had no confirmed sighting of him in all those 3 years other than the woman in the car.
The only person who might know the whereabouts of Gagnon is Louis Bourgeois, who continues to make escape attempts. On separate occasions, authorities have found in his possession 4 hacksaw blades, a handcuff key, a razor blade with money wrapped around it, rope, ball bearings, screwdrivers, and the detailed prison map.
Louis, what are you doing this time?
Obviously, Bourgeois still hopes to be reunited with Gagnon on the outside. In 1986, Louis Bourgeois was transferred to the federal penitentiary at Leavenworth, Kansas. If he knows the whereabouts of Jean-Marie Gagnon, he is not talking.
As an escapee, I would say that Jean-Marie Gagnon is an extremely dangerous person. He has a lot to lose. If he gets arrested, he's coming back to jail where he's going to spend an awful lot of time.
If you're between him and freedom, he'll kill you. There's no doubt about it. And that's what makes Jean-Marie Gagnon dangerous. But sooner or later, he's going to make a mistake. Somebody's going to identify him, and we'll get him, dead or alive.
Gagnon is 6 feet tall, weighs 160 pounds, and has brown hair and brown eyes. He has tattoos on both arms and is an expert in French foot fighting. He should be considered armed and extremely dangerous. If you know Jean-Marie Gagnon, or if you think you've seen him, do not attempt to confront him. Please call the nearest United States Marshal's Office, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or our toll-free number, 1-800-876-5353. Last year, over 10,000 convicts escaped from prison or work-release programs. Of these, over 70% have been recaptured. Here are the names and faces of a few that remain at large. Perhaps you can help the authorities catch them. In 1979, Thomas Robert Noss Jr. was convicted of first-degree murder, indecent assault, and rape. 5 years ago, Noss escaped from the Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution at Graterford. He has not been seen since.
Robert Noss and a fellow inmate made good their escape by concealing themselves in a large chest. Inmates, wittingly or unwittingly, delivered them to the front gate where they were loaded onto a waiting van which drove them off the prison grounds.
Noss is 36 years old and was vice president of the Warlocks Motorcycle Club in Philadelphia. He has been cited in Arizona, Florida, West Virginia, and New Jersey. Noss is 5 feet 9, weighs 190 pounds with brown hair, brown eyes, and tattoos on both arms. Carl Alfred Eder was convicted and imprisoned in 1958 for murdering a mother and her 4 children. He was 16 years old at the time. Eder was last seen in 1974 when he walked away from a minimum security work detail at the Correctional Institution in Tehachapi, California.
He has ties in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in Southern California, and we have no idea where he could be.
Today, Eder is 46 years old, stands 6 feet 2, and has a slim build. He is a follower of Zen Buddhism and is considered to be an outdoorsman. He has a scar on his left hand between the thumb and forefinger. Lena Regina Smith is 40 years old. In 1971, she was sentenced to serve 8 to 15 years for manslaughter. She has a long criminal record with charges that include prostitution, larceny, and assault. On August 27, 1976, Smith escaped from the Massachusetts Correctional Institution in Framingham.
I think that Lena could be any place. She usually was working as a truck driver or traveling with other truck drivers, usually males.
Lena Regina Smith is 5 feet 3, weighs 140 to 155 pounds, has brown hair and hazel eyes. She may have a healed scar on her back and a scar on her right hip. In 1979, convicted serial rapist Joseph Mancini was sentenced to life plus 10 years. On March 19, 1987, Mancini escaped from the Southern Nevada Correctional Center outside Las Vegas by concealing himself in an employee's van.
Joseph Mancini is extremely dangerous. It was only by fate that he did not kill one of our police officers, and attempts to take him into custody since his escape have resulted in violent fights. Any agency getting a call reference this person, make sure there's plenty of backup and don't take any chances.
Mancini is known to be an experienced construction worker and carpenter. He is 5 feet 8 and weighs 160 pounds. He has a distinguishing brown birthmark on his right shoulder. Again, if you have any information about these escaped convicts, please contact our toll-free 800 number, 1-800-876-5353.